Hello and welcome back to another episode of the HRER podcast, where we delve into the world of HR emergencies and scandals. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to HRER on your favourite podcast platform.
Get ready for scandalous stories, lessons learned, and a generous dose of advice for HR professionals for navigating the HR landscape.
Our goal here is not just to entertain, but also to help you learn from the topics we touch on in order to save your business from its own emergency.
The beauty of HR on the ground is often they have got a deeper understanding of the business, the people in it, the personalities, the motivations behind, why people are doing things that they do. And this is where the two actually work really well together.
How can they differentiate between a genuine mistake and behaviour that could be perceived as discriminatory?
One of my key annoyances is the lawyers who think that they can entirely replace HR.
We're in like an empathy deficit where people can't see eye to eye. They'd rather disagree than see eye to eye.
Just before we start, protect your business from the risk of tribunal, reduce legal costs, and save yourself from HR headaches with our Heroes software and employment law consultancy services.
Back in the seat, welcome to another episode of HRER. We say our names at the start, didn't we?
No, people know who we are right now.
We don't need to do that anymore because people watch this.
Yeah. Though, for anyone who is watching, my hair has changed slightly.
I
am a bit darker.
It is.
And having put the black top back on, I'm going, my mother will hate it. I've gone full Morticia, as she would call it.
More full Morticia, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Side comment, Alyssa dyes her own hair.
I do dye my own hair. I'm a very busy person.
I was quite impressed by that.
Yeah. It's not for lack of available hair. I have a lot of hair. I'd be sat in a chair for literally 6-7 hours.
Long time.
Yeah.
We've done a good job though.
Thanks.
It's all that colour.
The same colour.
Yeah. So well done. And on that note, today we're going to talk about transgender employees, incorrect pronouns, and neurodiversity in the workplace.
There's a lot to get through.
There is a lot to get through. It's got nothing to do with
I love how we get from Alyssa does her own hair to transgender.
I'm going to
That
coin
was
it.
smooth. That was very smooth.
I'm going to call it an inappropriate segue. Let's crack on. Email first. I have an employee with dyspraxia who has trouble consistently using a colleague's incorrect pronouns following a gender transition. The employee says their disability affects their ability to remember pronoun changes, which makes it even harder to manage. Could you advise on what to do in this situation? It feels like a discrimination claim waiting to happen. That was hard to say.
I mean, definitely discrimination claim waiting to happen. I mean, before we dive into this one, first of all, let's understand what dyspraxia is. Do you know what dyspraxia is? I'm not asking you to make any offensive generalizations, but do you know?
I thought it was issues like motor skills.
So,
or like remembering stuff. No?
It's in the neurodiverse family.
Okay.
I'm going to get us a definition because I'm not a doctor. No. And this is one of the first things I would do with a situation like this is where there is a term or terminology or something that I don't necessarily understand or I don't feel like I've got enough an understanding of to start advising. We need to do a little bit of research. It doesn't mean that we need to become fully schooled up doctors, but at least let's understand what it is that we're dealing with. Because say if this was a situation where this person's saying, right, I've got dyspraxia, I'm having trouble remembering or using pronouns, and we launch into this process going, okay, that's one of the potential challenges that people with dyspraxia have. Well, is it? I don't know. Are we going to head into this essentially in ignorance, not really understanding much about the condition that we're dealing with? So we're not necessarily going to become Google doctors. This could be a situation where perhaps we need a bit of occupational health input, perhaps we need a medical report, but a surface level understanding. Because if you say to me, I have dyspraxia, I will hold my hands up and say, I don't have enough knowledge about what challenges that brings you. So let's have a look.
Generally, I was right. It's movement and coordination problems.
Yep. So I've got dyspraxia or development coordination disorder is a common neurological condition affecting physical coordination, movement balance, and spatial awareness. It disrupts brain to body signaling, making motor planning and daily tasks difficult, but does not affect intelligence. Common symptoms include developmental coordination disorder, motor learning difficulties, and historically clumsy child syndrome.
Just dropping things.
I think it might be a bit more than dropping things.
Sorry.
So then when we look at key aspects and examples, we've got fine motor skills, gross motor skills, daily living and organisation. So struggles with planning, time management, grooming and household chores. That to me then starts to say it's more than perhaps than something that's motor, because planning,
that's mental,
time management.
Yeah.
So, had we just gone off that initial definition, you almost run the risk then that you're going to dive back into this process and go to that employee, well, actually dyspraxia has got nothing to do with pronouns, and heading down off into the wrong direction. So let's keep going. speech. Some individuals experience difficulty coordinating speech muscles, known as verbal dyspraxia. Cognition, impact on memory, focus, and learning new skills. So actually, there's lots of challenges here that someone with dyspraxia would face that are relevant. So what this person is saying is, it's not that they don't understand what's gone on with this person, it's that they keep forgetting to use the correct pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
So it's potentially a memory issue. So that's the first step with something like this. It's, let's make sure we know enough to be able to get into a room and have a conversation about this. And if we don't, do what we just did, which is a bit of surface level research, but also let's have a chat with this employee. Let's understand, right? Can you tell me a bit more about, because I don't know enough about your condition. If you're comfortable talking to me about it, tell me what are the challenges that you face and how this all looks for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that we've got not only maybe the surface level research, how it impacts that person as an individual. So then when we go to occupational health, or maybe when we do go to get some reports, we know the sorts of questions that we need to ask, where we do need that more detailed medical analysis, perhaps, that's going to help us with this process before we dive in.
Okay. I mean, you've answered first question now.
Did I?
Yeah. How should HR start approaching the situation? I feel like the answer was research.
Research. So make sure that we're not going into a situation totally blind.
Is there anything else people like the HR team should do, just apart from like research and understand where people are coming from?
What we're not clear on here is actually if a formal complaint's been made yet. So for me, from an advisor perspective, I'm going to want to be understanding with HR, well, where are we going with this? Is it that it's just been noticed that we've got someone who is continually tripping over these pronouns and it's making things a little bit awkward? Have we actually had a complaint from the other employee who says, this is starting to get me down, it's getting a bit ridiculous? So is this HR actually being a little bit proactive and going, this is a situation that feels like if I don't stop this early, it's going to get out of control? Or have we had any complaints? So we're information gathering at this point. It could well be that actually the person whose pronouns have changed gets it.
Yeah, don't really care.
You know, fine. If it's a situation where they know that somebody is genuinely struggling with memory,
mm-hmm.
that they don't mean any personal offense, not everyone is going to take offense. That doesn't mean that that's the line that we're going to draw with everybody. If we've got someone who is doing it on purpose, so they are purposefully using the dead pronouns to be offensive.
Dead?
That's what I think they call them, isn't it? Or a dead name. Whatever the pronouns are that they no longer use. If you've got someone who is purposefully using those to upset somebody, to make a political point, to be saying, look, I don't believe that you can change gender. I don't believe that you can make me call you by your new pronouns. And they are being antagonistic about it. Mm-hmm. That's different. But where you've got someone who, because of a disability, is struggling with it, and the person who's on the receiving end of it's like, look, it's not ideal, but I get it, you know, and they've got some empathy with the situation as well. Maybe we can bumble along a little bit without this all being set on fire. So it definitely comes down to, well, the circumstances here.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that HR is understanding the context this is all happening in, but also that HR isn't going in there and accidentally stoking the fire.
You don't know how far it's been taken already, do you, to be fair?
Yeah.
It might all be relatively chill.
At the moment, it doesn't mean that it will continue to be. And this is where it's kind of a lose-lose sometimes for managers and HR. Is because where we can see a situation and go, okay, at the moment, no one's getting upset. There's lots of empathy flying around. We all seem to be, you know, working together fairly well. So I'm not going to do anything about this because I don't want to come in here, wave my big HR stick and make a problem that isn't there. But then further down the line, when somebody does get upset, you're going to be accused of having done nothing and you were aware of it nice and early.
Don't look great.
So potentially it can be a lose-lose where we've got a situation where it's, I don't want to stoke the fire and make this worse, but then if I don't do anything later down the line, I'm going to be accused of not caring and not stepping in early enough to protect somebody. So we have got a really kind of delicate balance here to strike. And I'd say this HR, in terms of coming to take advice, is doing the right thing. They're wanting to understand what's the legal implications in this situation. What should I be doing at this point to try and stop this becoming more of an issue than it needs to be?
Okay. Second question. How should employers differentiate, or how can they differentiate between a genuine mistake and behaviour that could be perceived as discriminatory?
So I think we alluded to it in my overly long intro. And it's a difficult one because we're trying to establish intention.
Could you, sorry.
No,
could you, I thought about this about 30 seconds ago and I've held it in my memory.
Well done. 30 seconds.
I'm knackered. Could you like analyse the relationship between these two people in general? Do you know what I mean? Like, are they already friends? Do they have a rapport? Do you know what I mean? Is that
understanding context?
Yeah,
100% is going to be really important. And I would say this is where you've got HR on the ground, as opposed to perhaps someone like us who's parachuted in, where you really have got the benefit of someone who's the eyes and ears of the business. Because if this landed on my desk from a concerned manager, I don't necessarily know these people. I don't know these people.
I don't know how it's said.
I don't know the background to the relationship. I don't know how things are being said. I don't know how it's landing. If I were to advise on this from a purely legal standpoint, so I lawyer the hell out of this,
right?
I could make this a bigger mess than it actually is, which lawyers can sometimes do.
Okay.
The beauty of HR on the ground is often they have got a deeper understanding of the business, the people in it, the personalities, the motivations behind, why people are doing things that they do. And this is where the two actually work really well together. Okay. Because you get a lawyer who goes, well, this is the law. We have two protected characteristics here that are potentially going to clash. We've got some complex legal issues that could be about to explode all over the business. Mm-hmm. But then you might have HR says, right, but actually, you know what? These two people are friends outside of work. There's very much an understanding between the two. I'm pretty convinced no one's actually getting upset here. Yes, other people might be feeling a bit awkward when they hear it, which is why it's come to my attention. Mm-hmm. But I don't actually think there's an issue here. Right. It could well be with a nice bit of HR maneuvering and some delicate conversations that I can keep this where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And it's a question that I sometimes get asked about, what's the role of HR? What's the role of employment lawyers? Do the two cancel each other out? And it's situations like this where actually you see the power of the two working together, which is you don't want someone to lawyer the hell out of a situation and make it worse. But equally,
you don't want the soft hand, do
you? You need someone for that soft hand to come to when they go, actually, this approach is no longer working, or I feel this is now going to escalate. Okay. Right, what's my legal risk? What's the strategy? And let's work together now on a plan for how we take this forward.
Very nice. That's the first time I think I've heard you mention that sort of concept of the collaborative approach of a consultant and a HR manager type thing.
I see this on LinkedIn all the time, and it's a bit of a bugbear of mine. And it's one that when I've wanted to talk about it before, our old dear leader, Michael, always warned me away from it for fear of isolating certain pockets of LinkedIn. And I'd say one of my key annoyances is sometimes where, and I'm going to start with the lawyers, is the lawyers who think that they can entirely replace HR. Who think because I have all my employment law knowledge, that's all that you need in a business, that you don't need a human resources person because I've got all this wonderful legal knowledge. What else could you possibly need? And actually, I think that misses the point about how businesses work, how people operate, and how the day-to-day commercial realities sometimes of how we manage relationships, implement policies and strategy works on the ground. Equally, it also annoys me when you see HR bods who claim to, because they've done a 4-hour employment law course, are now employment lawyers and that they understand full legal risk.
Right.
And one of the really trendy posts that you see is where HR says, what's the HR job? And they'll say, unpaid therapist, mediator, policy writer, strategist, lawyer. Take lawyer off the list.
You ain't qualled.
It's not that, but you're not a lawyer. It's not where your strengths are. Yes, you might have some understanding of employment law. Yes, you might even have run an employment tribunal. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make you a lawyer. Equally, for a lawyer who's got some employment law knowledge, you're not a HR professional.
The two are different.
The two are very, very distinct, and they are the most powerful when they work together. And yes, there's some overlap. And actually, there's some HR professionals that I work with where we have great working relationships. We understand the overlap, work very, very well together, and it's really, really effective. But where you have the two kind of pulling against each other thinking, well, I'm worried this person's going to put me out of business or this person's going to make me irrelevant, you're never going to use each other to the full extent of what you should be doing, and you're losing the power in that relationship.
No, I imagine it might turn into a bit of a competition. Who's right type thing, whose approach is more
sometimes
ideal.
Or invariably you're getting someone making a business case as to why the other person's not required. And that's just not, and I think we're seeing this at the moment in the press. So we're seeing HR getting blamed for companies that have been described as going too woke, or HR departments that are just described as bloated and that they're slowing business down. HR doesn't slow business down. Used in the right way and correctly structured, HR departments are fantastic at helping companies to grow in a proportionate and strategically aligned way.
That's a very astute way of saying that.
It is. If you have got managers who can just unfettered recruit who they want, how they want, and just keep filling seats without any thoughts as to how you're going to scale a department, how one department's going to work with others, or any kind of mind as to, policies, the law, anything, you're going to get into a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Structured chaos.
As companies grow, one of the side effects and a big casualty often of growth is sometimes, and it sounds really weird, are redundancies. So when companies want to grow, when they want to scale, often they will go through a consultation exercise where they look at how they need to be more efficient, and they will shed staff.
Oh, yeah.
And often that's where the growth has either been uncontrolled or they haven't had enough of a focused human strategy as to who have we got doing what job. And they will find departments that are bloated or actually where technology can be used to make things more efficient. And if you think of particularly, I've worked with businesses where they've lost half their headcount, the money that they have spent on those salaries and benefits and recruitment, only to have to shed them later on. Whereas if they'd been more focused with their human resources strategy earlier on, they would have saved themselves a lot of money. And the legal risk.
How much are you paying? And I know the answer to this. These consultants that you're getting on a daily whack, they're on loads of money, aren't they?
Yeah.
And really, what qualifications have they got? I'm going to say it.
I'd say there's a difference between bringing an external HR consultant for a one-off project versus having people on the ground. And yes, there are people who will exploit businesses that are in need or have a certain project to do, and they're taking advantage of the fact that they can basically name their price.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a place for people coming in to do one-off projects. Absolutely. We do one-off projects for people. But I think that, particularly for growing companies or companies once they reach a certain size, I do think there is a benefit to having in-house HR. I do. And I know we run a consultancy business that provides HR consultancy, but some of the best relationships that we have are with HR within a company because we can give that mesh of the employment law side, and that we have people, Michelle, who has got such a strong background having worked in-house in HR.
Mm. You need to have that information coming back, don't you? To how to tackle things as well. Like you just mentioned at the start, context is very important. Like if you're going in blind and you don't know what someone's like.
And it's one of the reasons why I like working with small businesses. And I like those relationships because I like getting to know what makes a business tick.
Mm-hmm.
So you might give advice as a lawyer to say, well, look, this is the letter of the law. But if business goes, well, we don't really work that way. They don't mean, well, we don't operate in a legally compliant way. But it could be that where I've advised on the law and said, this is what I think you need to do, that this is what you need to do isn't necessarily going to work for that business. You need to understand how they operate, what the relationships are like, who are actually the decision makers, who has got influence over those decision makers, so that the advice that you give then can be transplanted into the business rather than them going, well, that's great. Now I know what the law is, but what do I do with that?
You're teaching, aren't you, at that stage? You're teaching someone, and what they do with that information is up to them. We'll do employee questions now. There's only a few to run through. I can't help it with my disability. What reasonable adjustments or training should work be offering?
So
this is for the dyspraxia case.
Yeah, absolutely. Where we've got someone with a disability and that disability is causing them to face a disadvantage in the workplace, we should be looking at what we can do to support that employee.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is training that we can give, I'm not entirely sure what sort of training we'd put this person on.
I don't think you can't out-train dyspraxia.
Well, we're going to be going to occupational health on this.
Right, okay.
Which is, I am not a medical expert. I'm not a dyspraxia expert. I don't know what I can put in place to support this individual. So what I'm going to be wanting to do is have a supportive conversation with this employee where I say, right, tell me about the challenges that you are facing and the specific difficulties that you are having in the workplace. May I take that information and may we go to occupational health and we'll get some guidance on what it is that we can put in place to try and make life a little bit easier in terms of, what's going on. Also with this one, we've got to remember the person who has changed their pronouns, the person who's undergone the gender transition, they also have a protected characteristic. So just because this is being caused by a disability doesn't mean that they're not in an environment where their rights are being breached. So again, where we're looking at that HR and employment law mesh, yes, okay, we're going to be referring to occupational health and looking for guidance there. But also I'm going to be wanting to have a conversation with the transgender person, say, look, we're aware of this. We are doing what we can to try and make sure that this stops happening. how are you feeling about it? What can we do to be supporting you? And if it is a case of where they've been saying, well, look, I haven't wanted to escalate. I don't want to make things more difficult. But actually, maybe could I change departments for a little bit so it's not happening every day? You know, looking at how we can support that person as well. Because whilst we may have a situation where things clash, we've got a juggling act in terms of those legal obligations. We've also got moral and welfare obligations to both of them as well.
Okay. I've just done a quick Google. I've been tapping on my keyboard. The Equality Act 2010 differentiates gender reassignment and sex as two different protected characteristics.
Yes, because they are two different protected characteristics. So the Equality Act protects a number of certain characteristics. I do know them. I'm a lawyer, but just to make sure I don't miss any and be totally embarrassing, I'm going to read them. So we have age, explains itself. Disability, explains itself. Gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, which we went into heavily in last pod.
We did.
Sex and sexual orientation. So when we're talking about sex, we've had the Supreme Court ruling, which I think we've mentioned on pod before. We've got training on it. The Supreme Court ruling, when it's talking about sex in the Equality Act, is talking about biological sex. So I cannot treat you badly because you're a boy. Okay. As much as I may want to. I can't just man-hate for the sake of it. Equally, you can't treat me badly because I'm a girl.
Okay.
If I were to change gender, you can't treat me badly because I've transitioned. So it's that's protected. So if you were to subject me to negative treatment because I've been through that transition process, that is illegal under the Equality Act. We then also have protection again with regards to sexual orientation. So we've got biological sex protection. We've got protection for people who have undergone or undergoing gender reassignment, and then sexual orientation. So it protects people who, you know, you couldn't treat me badly because I'm into girls or because I'm...
That's always been a strange thing for me to like pick on someone for.
It is. And it's
really weird.
I like that it's such a foreign concept for you because there's people who we have to convince not to be mean to people because of their sexual orientation.
No.
Or perhaps because they've transitioned or because someone's a girl.
It might.
Or a boy.
I mean, Alex will, but he's similar age to me, will back me up on this. Like back at school, like you call someone like gay, just like, you're not cool type thing. Do you know what I mean? You're gay.
Yeah.
That's
and I think
cool.
Language has had to evolve because when you think about the origins of those sorts of things, so like you say, you know, that you'd use that word to describe someone who wasn't cool. Invariably that has come off the back of something offensive and the word has then evolved to be used in a street way, in a negative way. So I don't agree with people who say, oh, you know, we've become woke, we can't say what we want. Is to think, well, where has that language come from and why is it used in that way? But yeah, gender reassignment has always been in the Equality Act. It's not a new thing.
Whoa.
And the Supreme Court ruling around the sex-based decision reinforced that. And what the judge said in that is the different categories have their own distinct protections. So where you have someone who is treated badly because they have transitioned, they don't necessarily need the protection of the sex protected characteristic under the Equality Act because they have protection under the gender reassignment section.
Can you only have one?
No, you can have multiple.
Okay.
You can have multiple.
Loads.
You know, you can have someone who goes off on maternity leave is also disabled who gets picked on for the two. You can have someone who is older in the workplace and female and is treated badly because they're old and female in the workplace. So you can have the protection of multiple ones. And where it gets complicated with the gender reassignment and the sex stuff is you could have someone who, say, was biologically male, has transitioned and now identifies as being a woman, biologically still male, but is using female pronouns and identifies as a woman. If in the workplace that person is treated badly because they're believed to be a woman, so say they haven't disclosed the fact that they've transitioned, they've arrived at work on day one, identifies as a woman, and nobody has any reason to question.
They don't know they were a man.
Don't know.
Right, okay.
And that person is treated badly because they are a woman.
All right.
That person has protection under the sex discrimination rules.
Right.
Because the person who's treating them badly believes they are a woman. The defense to that wouldn't be, well, you're actually a man, so you don't get the protection. because the aggressor, the bully, believes that they are female. They are picking on them because they think that they are a woman.
Yeah, well, at least they're picking on them for how they want to be picked on. No?
I don't think that gives them any comfort, to be honest. But where this comes from, there's a case I worked on at my last firm, and there's established legal principles that you don't necessarily actually have to have the protected characteristics. So there's a leading case where someone was picked on because they believed he was gay, and he wasn't actually gay. He was straight.
Yeah.
Or heterosexual. And he didn't actually have to be gay to be able to bring a discrimination complaint. The fact that people believed he was and treated him badly as a result was enough.
I imagine it'd be quite irritating.
Well, whether it's irritating or not, it's still breaking the law.
Yeah.
So where you've got someone where people believe that they are a woman, they're treated badly because they believe that they are a woman, they've got the protection of sex discrimination.
Look, it sounds like they've got it either way.
Yeah. However, if people know that they've transitioned, they don't pick on them because they're a woman, they pick on them because they've transitioned, they get the protection under the gender reassignment protected characteristic.
These people are playing chess.
No, the law is just, it's very precise. That's all it is you need to understand, and HR potentially needs to try and understand, if we're going to accuse somebody of discriminatory behaviour and we're going to discipline them, what kind of discrimination is it? Are they picking on this person because they think they're a woman, or are they picking on this person because they think they've had gender reassignment?
By heck.
Either way,
if
the behaviour is bad, we're still going to be potentially, disciplining someone for being a bully.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want to go that much further and we're going, right, this is gross misconduct because it's bullying based on discriminatory behaviour, we are going to have to be quite precise.
Okay.
And I'm going to reference a case that we did in the previous pod, which was the fire service one, where we had the firefighter who called the woman a pig because she was unattractive. One of the reasons the fire service failed in that case and the dismissal was found to be unfair was because the fire service weren't precise enough. The tribunal said that they weren't precise enough in concluding what this firefighter had actually said.
Right, okay.
They were like, you said something that was unacceptable.
Along the lines of X, Y.
It's kind of this.
Yeah.
We don't really, they didn't try and get to the bottom of what was actually said.
Right.
It wasn't precise
they didn't get
enough.
The pig. Didn't get that. That's
I think
important.
that bit was admitted, but there was other things that were said as well.
Okay.
So we got the pig comment, but there were other things where a firefighter says, I don't actually remember what I said. Someone else said, well, he muttered it. I didn't really hear. They weren't, and what he was accused of was, you said some bad stuff.
Okay.
It's not good enough. We've got to be more
Vague,
precise than that. And I would say it's the same with this, is where we are going to accuse someone of discriminatory behaviour. We don't want to be in a situation in tribunal where we end up falling between the cracks. Whereas if we say, well, I wasn't sure if it was sex discrimination or if it was gender reassignment, what are you accusing someone of? If we're going to accuse someone of bad behaviour, we need to be clear on what it is.
You seem cheesed off about it. It's like you've had it happen before.
Well, kind of, yeah. But if you can't actually decide what someone's done, you're not ready for the disciplinary.
No, make your mind up.
You haven't done enough. If you can't get your head round it, take some advice. Because it might be the investigation needs to be more thorough, that we haven't done enough.
I'd argue that if you don't know the reason the discrimination's occurring, the investigation's definitely not been thorough enough.
Yeah.
100, what questions have you been asking?
Yeah.
What we're doing here. Last question. If you don't know if someone's had a sex change, how are you meant to know? And we had a conversation about this on Teams, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to flip this back on you.
Go on.
Why do we need to know?
Why do we need to know?
Yeah.
So we know what to call them?
No, they'll tell you what they want to be called.
Will they?
Yeah. Why do we need to know that someone's had a sex change?
Paperwork?
So when they... We hear Alex laughing in the next room. For paperwork. Okay, we're going to be precise. What paperwork? I'll tell you when
P45?
I'll tell you when we need to know is when we report to HMRC, we have to report on HMRC gender. So it's in our system. You have to say whether someone is male or female.
You do?
Other than that, generally speaking, why do we need to know? And do you know what? And I know you're going to kick yourself for not giving me this as an answer, because it's the obvious one that everyone always reverts to because it's seen as the easy answer is. So I know what toilet to tell somebody to go and use.
Isn't that in question now, though?
I mean, we've had the whole Supreme Court ruling stuff around this about what employers do and don't need to do. If you can't establish what somebody's gender is, and it's not your business to be reporting to HMRC because that's what HR has done, why do you need to know? We don't.
But, to advocate the devil, if they want to be called a specific thing...
Yeah. And if you feel that it directly contradicts something that or however they're presenting. Why do we care about the contradiction?
In this situation specifically, if I had misgendered someone and they'd reported it and they hadn't told me what to call them.
If you didn't know, that's different.
Do you know what I mean? I'd be fuming. I'd be like, you didn't tell me.
If you didn't know, that's different. However, if someone has politely asked you to refer to me as this, even if your brain is going, but in my brain and the way that my thinking works, that's a contradiction, but someone has asked you in good faith to do it, just do it. And this is something that when I go out and do, some of the more complex training around discriminatory stuff, is we're all human. We've all got to try and work together. Calling someone by a name that they have been asked to be called by is not sacrificing all your beliefs and your morals necessarily. There's been some quite complex cases around where people feel that they shouldn't have to act in a certain way because it's contrary to their beliefs. But if someone says to me, I want you to call me this name, and I think, okay, on the face of it, I don't get it, but I respect it.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care.
If that makes you happy, fine.
Avoids arguments.
It's not even that it avoids arguments. Why do we need to get into it? If they want to live their life in a particular way, in the way that I want to live my life in a particular way, I don't want to feel judged for it. And I don't necessarily always want to feel like I'm having to explain my choices to people.
No.
If it's not harming me and it's not impacting my life, will I use language that I'm asked to use at work? Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree. There are people, however.
So you will get people who will say, it is contrary to my religious or philosophical beliefs. So I do not believe that gender can be changed. They will say that. Say, either due to my religion or whatever other philosophical beliefs, I do not believe you can change someone's gender. Therefore, I'm going to refuse to use pronouns or names that I do not believe correlate with someone's biological gender.
Technically an internal feeling of how you feel, isn't it?
Yes. So where you have someone who says, I don't accept that concept. I believe that gender and biological sex are irrefutable. They are the same thing.
They're not.
But that's someone else's belief. So then we've got a clash of beliefs again.
But then you've got science that just says, no, you're wrong and I'm right.
But then when we're in a situation at work where you've got someone who is saying, well, this is contrary to my beliefs, therefore I'm going to behave in this way. That's where HR really does have quite a difficult situation on their hands, because they've got someone who is saying, please call me by this name, refer to me in these terms. You've got someone who's saying, I absolutely will not do that because that is contrary to my beliefs. That is a situation where you need to go and involve either your company lawyer or employment lawyer as to how we manage that situation, because that is one where
people won't back down.
And also, if we're going to try and talk someone out of their beliefs, that's potentially discriminatory behavior. We need to make sure that we're not getting into that situation from the wrong direction to start with. So it could be that we put people on various different training. It could be that we bring in some mediation. It could be that we look at ways that we can soften that relationship between the two individuals to try and get ourselves to a situation where you've got two people with opposing beliefs that can work together. Because beliefs are protected. The way that we manifest them in terms of our actions is not. So if I'm in a situation where I don't believe the same thing as that person who sat over there, and I call them a horrible name as a result, that is not protected. My belief is. But if I am mean to somebody, when I'm expressing that belief, my behavior is not. So making sure that those two people understand the rules of the game. You may have your opposing beliefs, but you have to be respectful at work.
9 to 5, shut up about it.
You cannot treat someone or put them to a detriment because of your belief or because you don't agree with them. And this is where it does start to get really complex. And this is where I will be saying, call in the big guns for a bit of help here and see how we can help you manage that situation.
I think it's an empathy problem, personally.
Yeah.
I think the world, and I'll include myself in this because I'm not empathetic at all most of the time. We're in like an empathy deficit where people can't, like the political thing we spoke about, the other podcast, like people can't see eye to eye. They'd rather disagree than see eye to eye.
Yeah, I think the empathy thing's an interesting one. I've been reading more because a lot of the training I do around things like resilience and workplace relationships, empathy is a big part of that. And there's some theory that I was reading around how the more people have gone through in their lives, they can reach a point where they have less and less empathy because they think, well, I've been through all of this.
Yeah.
Get through whatever you're working through.
Interesting.
You know, they see it as a, well, I've done all of this. I've got through all of this. I've battled all these battles. I don't see why you can't tough it out on this occasion.
Crack on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's more common
It's hard to get
in
out of it,
leaders
mate,
and people
yeah.
who are either in senior places or who've been through traumatic things in their personal life as well. So empathy is a difficult one. It's, saying have more empathy doesn't make people have more empathy.
No, it doesn't. No. I think it's a skill, mate.
So yeah, there is a complexity to it. So, and this is where I find the workplace so fascinating, because it's very, very different to the rules of the game are different to what we're like in our personal lives.
100%.
So I have personal beliefs, I have political beliefs, I have beliefs about pretty much anything you can ask me a question on. Am I going to express it at work? No.
You shouldn't. You're our founder. You should be professional at all times.
Exactly. And there's
Let me do that.
There's a weight that comes with that. No,
I carry it every day.
But it's not appropriate,
No.
is it? And it doesn't mean that I'm woke. It doesn't mean that I'm changing my beliefs, and it doesn't mean that if needed to, that I wouldn't advocate for my beliefs. But I don't think the workplace is the place to do it.
Have you got historical heritage in Switzerland, perhaps?
just Miss Neutral.
Yeah.
And I think there is
fence.
that, that people say that if you're too prepared to accept what somebody else says, that you're sacrificing your own opinions and your views. No, you're not. You don't have to recruit to your beliefs.
It can add to argument either way.
Yeah.
You can I try to do that if bring up again Jim. Jim's got knowledge about other places in the world where I've never been.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just be like, okay, I'll add that to the Wikipedia in my head. Do you know what I mean? Add that in. It's not necessarily a detriment. Like, people take these things as challenges.
Yeah.
And I don't think it should be. It should be like a growth thing.
I do. It's one of my favorite things to say is that the hill I really want to die on. And the problem is when it comes to personal beliefs, it is a hill people want to die on.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to die on that hill at work.
No.
Fine, down the pub, whatever.
Yeah.
If you want to fall out with your mates,
But we
fine.
can get fists involved.
Yeah. But when you do it in law and in work, you can end up breaking the law.
It's a risky thing.
It's a very risky thing. Keeps me in a job though. It's cool.
Exactly. That was, we've rabbled on a bit there. We'll finished with what measures can HR departments take to prevent this in future. We've got the neurodiversity training.
We have neurodiversity training. We have resilience training.
We do. That's new.
The resilience training is new to the e-learning, not new to lots of my clients that I've been doing that with for years.
But the course itself that has been built. Sorry.
Yeah, it's been built. It's on the e-learning platform now. We've got the anti-discrimination training. So training, always a great place to start. HR, I would say if you're in these sorts of situations, it's having someone good on speed dial, me, and robustly built policies around things like, free speech and these complex topics so that you've got that reference point, your starting point. And also, again, understanding how mediation works, things like that. I'm an accredited mediator. It's not something I have as much time to do these days because of everything else that we've got going on.
That's a thing.
Mediation,
sit in a room and be like, listen, between
mediation's
two people.
Great. You get to feel like the good guy every day of the week. And it's mediation rare. I'm not saying it rarely fails. I've never had a mediation that failed. I've had every mediation I've ever presided over has ended in agreement.
Not to flex.
Because generally, well, not even generally, mediation only works when both people want to come to the table.
Okay.
If you've got one who absolutely doesn't want to mediate, one does, there's no point. So you're starting from a winning point anyway, in that both people want to explore whether there is an alternative resolution outside of, say, litigation or something more formal. And also, you can come up with more creative outcomes with mediation. If you go to tribunal, the outcomes are limited to your judgment and invariably money or reinstatement if someone's lost their job. With mediation, you can look at much more creative agreements. So a judge can't mandate an apology.
Oh.
Mediators can't mandate anything, but you can get to a point where, okay, well, if you agree to apologise and you agree to do this, then we can all leave here as friends. You can be much more creative about outcomes. And one of my favourite, I'm going to stop rambling on in a minute, one of my favourite tribunal outcomes that actually settled midway through the hearing was, and I was on the claimant side for this one, this was pre-respondent days. And it had gone on for years, this thing. I think we were 2-3 years down the line, which back then was a long time. Tribunals used to happen much faster then. And she agreed to settle. There was a sum of money, but it wasn't a new sum of money. That had always kind of been in contention as being the settlement amount. She settled for a hug and an apology, basically. However, respondents hate apologising because they think it admits fault. So the apology and the hug had to happen behind a closed door with the blinds down, and no one was allowed to speak about it afterwards.
I mean, I was gonna be like, "Well, it's so nice," till you said that.
Yeah.
A behind closed doors, like no one can ever hear about this again.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
It was hilarious.
Sounds a little bit disingenuous. But yeah, we've dragged on a bit there. That was good fun. Lots of talking points.
Yeah.
Nothing else to add from you.
No, I don't think so. It's, you know, reinforcing those key points, isn't it? Training, make sure you got decent advisors on hand. Don't forget we exist, basically.
But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Cheers. Thank you. Until next time, we're your hosts signing off from HRER. Take care of your HR and may your workplace be disaster-free. Before we go, a big thank you to you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have your own ER stories or suggestions for future episodes, reach out to us at Heroes or on social media, or even hrer@heroes.co.uk. As we navigate the maze of workplace blunders, remember that no organisation is perfect, but by sharing these stories, we can all work towards creating healthier, happier and more productive workplaces.